The mining moon had no name that anyone remembered. People just called it Kepler 442b, a code written in some computer 1,000 years ago. It was a cold rock floating at the edge of human space, forgotten by everyone who once cared about it. Marcus Chen was the last human living there. He had stayed behind when the mining corporation left 20 years ago. They took everything worth taking and abandoned the rest. Marcus was part of the rest. He had nowhere else to go. Earth was too crowded, too expensive, too far away. So he stayed in the empty habitat, fixing broken machines, growing vegetables in a tiny garden, and waiting for nothing in particular. Marcus was 43 years old, but he looked 60. His hair had turned gray early. His hands shook sometimes. The doctors on passing trade ships told him the radiation from all those years of salvage work was killing him slowly. 2 years, maybe 3. He never told anyone else about this. What was the point? On the night everything changed, Marcus was eating dinner alone. It was the same dinner he ate every night. Potato soup made from potatoes he grew himself. The soup was thin and tasteless, but it kept him alive. The alarm broke the silence like a scream. Marcus dropped his spoon and ran to the control panel. His old computer showed him what was happening outside. A shuttle was falling from the sky, burning through the thin atmosphere, heading straight for the surface. It was not slowing down. The crash shook the whole habitat. Marcus grabbed the wall to keep from falling. Through the small window, he could see smoke rising from the crash site, maybe 200 meters away. He should have stayed inside. That would have been the smart thing to do, the safe thing. But Marcus Chen had never been very smart about such things. He put on his old pressure suit and walked out into the cold. The shuttle was broken in half. Fire burned inside it, but the flames were dying in the thin air. Marcus approached carefully, his flashlight cutting through the smoke. He expected to find bodies. He expected to find death. Instead, he found 6 pairs of eyes staring at him from the darkness. They were Krethkai. Humans called them orcs because of their faces. They had green-gray skin, thick as leather. They had tusks growing from their lower jaws. They had bodies built like tanks, with arms that could crush metal. The galaxy feared the Krethkai. They had been warriors for 10,000 years, but these 6 did not look like warriors. They looked broken, beaten, starving. Their clothes were torn. Their bodies were covered in wounds. One of them, a young male, was unconscious and bleeding badly. The others huddled around him, trying to protect him with their own bodies. Marcus had heard the news on his radio. The Dominion, the great empire that ruled half the galaxy, had decided the Krethkai were dangerous. Genetically undesirable, they called them. The Dominion was hunting them down everywhere, killing them, erasing them from existence. These 6 had run, and they had crashed here on a forgotten moon, in front of the last human in the system. One of them stepped forward. It was a female, taller than Marcus, wider than Marcus, with scars covering her face and arms. She moved slowly, hands open to show she had no weapons. When she reached Marcus, she did something he had never seen a Krethkai do before. She kneeled. Her knees hit the rocky ground. Her head bowed low. The other Krethkai watched in silence, their eyes filled with something Marcus recognized. He had seen that look before, in old photographs from Earth's history. It was the look of people who had lost everything. The female spoke. Her voice was deep and rough, but her words were clear. "Human," she said, "we have been running for 30 days. Our ship is destroyed. Our people are dying across the galaxy. We have nowhere else to go." She paused. Her breath came out in white clouds in the cold air. "Will you let us die here? Or will you let us live?" Marcus looked at her. He looked at the others behind her. He looked at the young one who was bleeding, maybe dying. He thought about his habitat, designed for one person. He thought about his food supplies, calculated for one person. He thought about the 2 years he had left to live. 6 Krethkai would eat everything he had in weeks. If he let them in, he would probably starve before the radiation killed him. The female was still kneeling. She had not looked up. She was waiting for his answer. Marcus thought about his grandmother. She had died before he was born, but his mother told him her story 1,000 times. During the Great Famine on Earth, she had shared her last bowl of rice with strangers. She had nothing, and she gave it away. When people asked her why, she said something Marcus never forgot. Hunger shared is hunger halved. She was wrong about the math, of course, but she was right about everything else. Marcus reached down. He took the female's hand. Her skin was rough and cold, but her fingers closed around his gently, like she was afraid of breaking him. "Get up," Marcus said. "My name is Marcus. What's yours?" The female stood. She was a full head taller than him. "Tara," she said. "I was a general once. Now I am nothing." "You're not nothing," Marcus said. "You're my guest. Come on. Let's get your friend inside before he bleeds to death." The other HFY stared at him. They did not move. They could not believe what they were hearing. Thara turned to them and spoke in their own language. Marcus did not understand the words, but he understood the tone. She was telling them it was real. She was telling them to follow. They carried the wounded one together. Marcus led them across the rocky ground to his habitat. The airlock was small, too small for Krethkai bodies. They had to squeeze through one at a time. But they made it. When the inner door opened, warmth rushed out. The Krethkai stood in the entrance, feeling heat for the first time in weeks. One of them, an older male with a broken tusk, started to cry. He tried to hide it, but Marcus saw. "It's okay," Marcus said. "You're safe now." He did not know if that was true. He did not know what would happen tomorrow, or next week, or next month. He did not know if he had just saved 6 lives or ended his own. But his grandmother's voice was in his head, and his heart was warm for the first time in years. He led them inside and closed the door. Behind them, the night was quiet again. But everything had changed. The first week was the hardest. Marcus had calculated his food supplies down to the last gram. He knew exactly how many days he could survive on what he had. The answer had been 412 days. Enough time to wait for the next trade ship. Enough time to live out his remaining years in peace. With 6 Krethkai in his habitat, that number dropped to 47 days. The orcs ate 3 times what a human ate. They could not help it. Their bodies were built for war, for strength, for survival in the harshest places. They needed fuel. And Marcus's tiny food garden could not produce enough fuel for 7 people. By the end of the first week, they were already rationing. Marcus cut his own portions in half. He told the others he was not hungry. Thara watched him push food around his plate, eating almost nothing, and she knew he was lying. But she said nothing. She understood pride. Her people had invented it. The wounded one, whose name was Brock, survived. The Krethkai healed fast when they had food and warmth. Within 5 days, he was walking. Within 7, he was trying to help. But there was not much to help with. The habitat was small. 6 large Krethkai and 1 thin human filled every room. They bumped into each other constantly. They stepped on each other's feet. They breathed each other's air. On the 9th day, Grok broke the tomato plants. Grok was the youngest of the 6. He was barely an adult by Krethkai standards, maybe 17 in human years. He had been a student before the purge began. He had never been a soldier. His hands were large but clumsy, and he did not know his own strength. He was trying to help Marcus water the plants. He reached for a watering can. His elbow hit the grow lights. The lights fell. The tomato plants were crushed under the metal frame. The room went silent. Grok stood there, looking at the destroyed plants. Those tomatoes were supposed to feed them for 2 weeks. Now they were gone. Because of him. Because he was too big, too clumsy, too useless. He started to cry. In Krethkai culture, warriors did not cry. Crying was weakness. Crying was shame. But Grok could not stop the tears. They rolled down his green cheeks and dripped onto the dead plants. "I am sorry," he said. His voice was shaking. "I am so sorry. I have killed us all." Marcus looked at the ruined garden. He looked at the crying boy. He thought about getting angry. He thought about shouting, about blaming, about all the things his father used to do when Marcus made mistakes as a child. Instead, he walked to the storage room. He came back with a small bag. Inside were seeds. Tomato seeds. His last ones. He held them out to Grok. "These things happen," Marcus said. "We'll grow more." Grok stared at the seeds like they were made of gold. But I destroyed. I know what you destroyed. I was standing right here." Marcus put the seeds in Grok's massive hand. "Now you're going to learn how to plant them. And next time, you'll be more careful. That's how we do things here. We make mistakes. We learn. We try again." The other Krethkai watched this in silence. They did not understand this human. He had every right to be furious. He had every right to throw them out, to save himself. Instead, he gave away his last seeds to the boy who had just ruined his garden. Thara pulled Marcus aside that night. They stood in the narrow hallway, speaking in whispers so the others would not hear. "Why do you do this?" she asked. "You do not owe us anything. We are strangers. We are not even your species. Why do you give us everything you have?" Marcus leaned against the wall. He was tired. He was always tired these days. The radiation was eating him from the inside, but he did not tell her that. "My grandmother survived a famine once," he said. "Back on Earth, a long time ago. She had 1 bowl of rice left. 1 bowl for herself and her children. And then strangers came to her door. Refugees, like you. Running from war. What did she do? She shared the rice. Split it 7 ways instead of 3. My mother asked her why, years later. My grandmother said, 'Hunger shared is hunger halved.'" Marcus smiled, but there was sadness in his eyes. She was wrong about the math. But she was right about something more important. Thara did not understand. What was she right about? That kindness is the only thing worth keeping. Everything else can be taken away. Your home, your money, your health. But kindness? That stays with you until the end. And it stays with the people you give it to long after you're gone. Thara was quiet for a long time. In her language, there was no word for kindness. There was duty. There was honor. There was strength. But kindness was something she had never been taught. "You are strange, Marcus Chen," she finally said. "But I think I am beginning to understand your people." She did not tell him what she had found earlier that day. While cleaning the storage room, she had discovered his medical files on an old computer. She had read about the radiation. She had read about the 2 years. She had read about how he was dying, slowly, and how he had never told anyone. This human, this small and fragile creature, was giving away the last of his life to strangers. He knew he was dying, and he chose to spend his final days helping people he had never met. Thara had fought in 30 battles. She had killed enemies with her bare hands. She had watched friends die screaming. She thought she understood strength, thought she was wrong. True strength was standing in a broken habitat, holding out seeds to a crying boy and saying, "We will try again." The next morning, Grok planted the new tomato seeds. His hands moved slowly, carefully, with a gentleness no one had ever seen from a Krethkai before. Marcus stood beside him, teaching him how deep to plant, how much water to give, how to talk to the young plants like they were children. "They grow better when you talk to them," Marcus said. "I know it sounds crazy, but it works." Grok nodded seriously. He leaned close to the tiny pots of soil and whispered in his deep Krethkai voice. "Please grow," he said. "Please grow. We need you." Marcus smiled. For the first time in 20 years, his habitat felt like a home. But far above them, in the cold darkness of space, a Dominion patrol ship entered the system. Its scanners swept across the moon, searching for one thing and one thing only. Krethkai life signs. It found 6. The transmission came at midnight. Marcus was sleeping when the communication system started screaming. He stumbled out of bed, nearly falling twice, and reached the control panel just as Thera burst through the door. The other Krethkai were right behind her, their eyes wide with fear. They all knew what this meant. Marcus opened the channel. A face appeared on the screen. It was a Dominion officer, dressed in the black uniform of the Imperial Fleet. He had the smooth, perfect features of the ruling species. No scars, no imperfections. Nothing that marked him as anything other than superior. "Human settlement on Kepler 442b, the officer said. His voice was calm, almost bored. "We have detected 6 Krethkai life signs at your location. These individuals are genetic criminals, wanted for crimes against the natural order. You will surrender them to us immediately." Marcus said nothing. He just stared at the screen. "If you refuse," the officer continued, "you will be charged with harboring enemies of the Dominion. The punishment for this crime is death. You have 1 hour to comply." The screen went dark. The Krethkai stood in silence. Dara stepped forward, her face hard as stone. "We will go," she said. "We will not let you die for us." "No," Marcus said. "You do not understand. The Dominion does not make empty threats. They will kill you. They will destroy this habitat. Everything you have built." I said no. Marcus turned away from them. He walked to the communication console and started pressing buttons. His hands were shaking, but not from fear. From anger. From something that had been sleeping inside him for 20 years. "What are you doing?" Thera asked. "Something stupid," Marcus said. "Something human." He opened a channel. Not to the Dominion ship. To everyone. Every frequency. Every station. Every ship within range. His voice went out into the darkness of space, traveling at the speed of light, reaching anyone who would listen. "This is Marcus Chun of Kepler 442b. I am a human citizen. I have 6 guests in my home. They are Krethkai refugees. They have committed no crime except being born. The Dominion wants them. The Dominion says I should hand them over." He paused. On the screen, he could see the Dominion ship waiting in orbit. 1 ship. Enough to destroy 100 habitats like his. My answer is no. He took a breath. Behind him, the Krethkai watched with disbelief. Any humans listening to this broadcast, you know who these people are. You know what the Dominion is doing to them. Hunting them. Killing them. Erasing them from existence because of how they were born. We have seen this before. We have seen it in our own history, on our own planet. We swore we would never let it happen again. His voice grew stronger, louder. I am one man. I have no weapons. I have no army. I have nothing but this broken habitat and 6 people who ask me for help. The Dominion thinks they can come here and take them. They think humans are weak. They think we will look away because it is easier. He smiled. It was not a happy smile. It was the smile of a man who had nothing left to lose. They are wrong. You want my guests? Come and take them. But you will have to come through me first. And any humans out there who remember what we stand for, I could use some company." He ended the transmission. The room was silent. Thera stared at him like he had lost his mind. Perhaps he had. "You have just declared war on the Dominion," she said. "By yourself, I know. They will kill you. Probably. Then why?" Marcus turned to face her. His eyes were bright, alive in a way they had not been for years. "Because you asked for refuge. And where I come from, that means something." Nothing happened for the first 10 minutes. The Dominion ship sat in orbit, probably laughing at the crazy human who thought words could stop warships. The Krethkai sat together, holding hands, preparing to die. Then the first response came. "Kepler 442b. This is the cargo freighter Silver Wind. I heard your broadcast. I'm 3 hours out, but I'm coming. I've got a crew of 12 and a hull full of mining explosives. Hope that helps." Another voice. "This is Martha Reyes, retired Marine, currently on Kepler 447. I've got an old rifle and a bad attitude. Give me 6 hours." Another. "Chan, you crazy fool. This is Captain Rodriguez of the passenger ship Aurora. I've got 300 civilians on board, but I'm changing course. Someone needs to witness this." More voices. More ships. A hacker collective called themselves the Rats announced they were flooding Dominion communications with interference. A group of human miners on a nearby asteroid said they were loading their rock cutters and heading his way. A grandmother on a retirement station said she was praying for them all died within 2 hours. 17 ships were heading for Kepler 442b. None of them were military. None of them had weapons that could scratch a Dominion warship. They were freighters and passenger ships and mining vessels and one very old shuttle held together with tape and hope. They came anyway. The Dominion commander watched this happen from his bridge. He had expected the human to surrender. He had expected fear. Instead, he got a fleet of civilians flying towards certain death because one dying man asked for help. He did not understand. This made no sense. These humans gained nothing from this fight. They would lose everything. "Commander," his second officer said, "what are your orders?" The commander thought about it. He could destroy the habitat easily. He could kill the human and the Krethkai in seconds. But then he would have to explain to his superiors why he started a diplomatic incident with the Terran Federation. Why he killed human civilians. Why he turned a simple collection mission into an interspecies crisis. All for 6 refugees who were already dying anyway. "Pull back," he said. His voice was bitter. "This is not worth the trouble." But before he left, he opened a channel to Marcus one last time. "This is not over, human. The Dominion does not forget. We will return." The screen went dark. The ship turned. And slowly, it flew away in the habitat below. The Krethkai watched through the window as their hunters disappeared into the stars. They turned to Marcus, this small human who had just faced down an empire with nothing but words. Thara spoke first. "Why did they come?" "The other humans. They do not know us. They do not know you. Why did they risk their lives?" Marcus was sitting down now. The excitement had drained him. His hands were shaking again. "Because we are human," he said. "Because that is what we do." Outside, the first of the ships began to arrive. Lights in the darkness. Strangers coming to help strangers. Thara did not understand it, but she was beginning to learn. The word spread like fire across the galaxy. Humans talked about the madman on Kepler 442b who faced down a Dominion warship with nothing but his voice. They shared the recording of his broadcast on every network, every station, every ship traveling through the darkness of space. Children listened to it in their beds. Old soldiers listened to it and remembered why they once fought. People who had never met a Krethkai listened to it and felt something stir in their hearts. But the Krethkai heard it too. They were scattered across the galaxy, hiding in shadows, running from death. They had lost their homes, their families, their hope. And then they heard about a human who had none of these things and gave them away anyway. The first new refugees arrived. 2 weeks after the Dominion ship left, they came in a broken shuttle that should not have been able to fly. There were 9 of them, including 3 children. They had been traveling for 40 days, eating nothing but emergency rations, drinking recycled water. When they landed on Kepler 442b, they fell to their knees and wept. Marcus welcomed them the same way he had welcomed the first 6. He opened his door. He shared his food. He said the same words his grandmother would have said. "You are safe now. Stay as long as you need." More came, and more, and more. Within 3 months, there were over 100 Krethkai living on the moon. Within 6 months, there were 400. They came from every corner of the galaxy, following the story of the human who said no to the Dominion. They came because they had nowhere else to go. They came because, for the first time in their lives, someone had offered them hope. The tiny habitat could not hold them all. So they built more. Human ships brought supplies, building materials, food, medicine. Engineers came to help design new structures. Doctors came to treat the sick and wounded. Teachers came to help the Krethkai children, who had never been to school, who had spent their lives running. No one asked for payment. No one asked for anything in return. Why? Tara asked Marcus one evening. They were sitting on a hill overlooking the growing settlement. Dozens of new buildings stretched across the rocky ground, their lights glowing warm against the cold sky. "Why do your people do this? We have nothing to give them. We are not their allies. We are not even their species." Marcus was wrapped in a blanket. He was cold all the time now. The radiation was getting worse. His body was failing, piece by piece, day by day. But his eyes were still bright when he looked at the settlement below. On Earth, a long time ago, there was a word for this. We called it humanity. Not the species. The idea. The belief that all people deserve kindness, no matter who they are or where they come from. We do not have this word in our language. I know. That is why your empire fell. You had strength. You had power. You had weapons that could destroy planets. But you never had humanity. And without that, nothing lasts. Thara was quiet for a long time. She was learning many new words these days. Kindness, hope, tomorrow. These were strange words to her, words her culture had never taught her. But she was beginning to understand why humans treasured them. "You are dying," she said suddenly. Marcus did not look surprised. "You found my medical files. Months ago. I did not know how to speak of it. There is nothing to speak of. I have 2 years. Maybe less. The radiation is eating me from inside. There is nothing anyone can do. The human doctors on the trade ships. They could help you. They have medicines. They have treatments that might give me another year. Maybe 2. But those treatments are on Earth. In hospitals I cannot afford. In cities that forgot I exist." Marcus shook his head. "I made my choice a long time ago. I will die here, on this rock, in this place I built. There are worse ways to go." Tara felt something strange in her chest. It took her a moment to recognize it. It was grief. She was grieving for this human, this small and fragile creature, who had given her people everything. "You should not have helped us," she said. Her voice was thick. "You should have saved yourself. You should have taken your food, your supplies, and lived your final years in peace." Marcus laughed. It was a weak laugh, but it was real. What would be the point? Dying alone in an empty habitat, with nothing but my own thoughts for company. He looked at the settlement below, at the Krethkai children playing in the lights, at the families building homes they never thought they would have. This is better. This is worth dying for. Down in the settlement, Grok was teaching a group of young Krethkai how to plant seeds. His hands moved gently, carefully, showing them how to treat the soil like a friend. He had become the head of the farming program, responsible for feeding hundreds of people. The boy who once cried over broken tomato plants was now the one keeping everyone alive. Brock, the one who had almost died in the crash, was leading a construction crew. His wounds had healed into scars he wore with pride. He told everyone who would listen about the human who saved them, the human who gave them a second chance. The other original 6 had found their own purposes. They taught. They built. They healed. They had been warriors once, trained only for destruction. Now they were learning how to create. But far away, in the dark heart of Dominion space, plans were being made. The commander who had retreated from Kepler 442b had been punished for his failure. His replacement was not so cautious. This new commander looked at the reports, at the growing settlement, at the largest concentration of Krethkai in the galaxy, and he saw an opportunity. One strike. One fleet. The entire Krethkai problem solved forever. He began gathering his ships back on Kepler 442b. Marcus collapsed in the garden. Thara found him lying among the tomato plants, his face pale, his breathing shallow. She lifted him in her arms like he weighed nothing and carried him toward the medical bay. His eyes opened as she walked. "Put me down," he whispered. "I can walk." "No," Thara said. "You cannot." She held him tighter. This human, who had given them everything, was fading. And Thara made a promise to herself right there. In that moment, the Krethkai would not let him die without knowing what he had done. They would not let him go without showing him that his sacrifice meant something, whatever it took. Whatever it cost, they would honor him, while he could still see it. The Dominion fleet arrived on a Tuesday. 30 warships dropped out of hyperspace, above Kepler 442b. They were the largest ships Marcus had ever seen. Dark shapes blocking out the stars, weapons pointed at the tiny settlement below. Each ship carried enough firepower to destroy a city. Together, they could burn the moon to ash. Marcus watched them from his window. He was in a wheelchair now, too weak to stand for long. The radiation had spread to his bones. The doctor said he had weeks left, maybe days. But he refused to lie down. He refused to close his eyes. Not yet. Not while his people needed him. The Dominion commander broadcast his ultimatum to the entire settlement. His voice echoed through every speaker, every screen, every room. Inhabitants of Kepler 442b, you are harboring 600 Krethkai criminals. This is your final warning. Surrender them now, or face complete annihilation. You have 1 hour. 600 Krethkai stood in the streets, looking up at the sky. They had run their whole lives. They had watched their families die. They had lost everything, again and again. And now the hunters had finally found them. But this time, something was different. This time, they were not alone. Thara walked to the communication center. Her steps were steady. Her back was straight. She was not the same Krethkai who had crashed on this moon a year ago, broken and begging for help. She had learned new words since then, new ideas, new reasons to fight. She opened the channel to the Dominion fleet. "Commander," she said, "I am Thara of the Krethkai. I speak for my people." "You speak for criminals and degenerates," the commander replied. "Your words mean nothing." "Then let me tell you what happened here. A year ago, 6 of us crashed on this moon. We were dying. We had nothing. We came to a human and asked for refuge. He had nothing, too. He was sick. He was alone. He was already dying. She paused. Behind her, hundreds of Krethkai gathered to listen. He let us in anyway. He fed us when he had no food. He gave us hope when we had forgotten what the word meant. He taught us that strength is not in weapons or wars. Strength is in compassion. Strength is in kindness. Strength is in choosing to help someone even when it costs you everything. The Dominion commander laughed. This is your defense? Stories about a dying human? Yes, Thera said. Because that dying human changed us. He taught us a word we never had before. Family. Not the family you are born into. The family you choose. The family you build. That is what we are now. Human and Krethkai. Together. Touching, the commander said. But it changes nothing. In 1 hour, you will all be dead. Thera smiled. You should check your sensors. The commander looked at his screen. His face went pale. Behind his fleet, 107 Terran warships had appeared. Not civilian ships this time. Not freighters or passenger vessels. These were Federation military ships, the official navy of the human government. They had come in silence, dropping out of hyperspace while the Dominion was focused on the settlement below. A cupping out of hyperspace while the Dominion was hyperspace while the Dominion was focused on the settlement below. Okay. New voice came over the communication channel. It was a human voice, calm and professional. Dominion Fleet, this is Admiral Sarah Chun of the Terran Federation. You are currently positioned in Federation-protected space. The inhabitants of Kepler 442b are under our official protection by order of the Federation Council. Any hostile action against them will be considered an act of war against humanity. The Dominion commander stared at his screen. 107 ships. Not enough to defeat his fleet, but enough to make the fight costly. Enough to start a war that would burn across the galaxy. This is not your concern, he said. The Krethkai are our problem. They were your problem, Admiral Chum replied. As of 6 hours ago, every Krethkai in the galaxy has been granted asylum by the Terran Federation. They are now under our protection. Our problem. A voice hardened. And we protect our family. The Dominion commander understood now. He understood what he was facing. Not just ships. Not just weapons. Something worse. He was facing humans who had decided to care. This is not over, he said. But his voice had lost its confidence. Yes, it is, Admiral Chun replied. Go home. Tell your masters that humanity has made its choice. The Krethkai are ours now. And we do not abandon our people. The Dominion fleet hung in space for a long moment. Then, one by one, the ships began to turn. They flew away into the darkness, defeated not by weapons, but by something they could not fight. The settlement erupted in cheers. Krethkai hugged humans. Children danced in the streets. Warriors who had never shown emotion wept openly, without shame. Thara ran to Marcus's room. He was still by the window, watching the stars. The Dominion fleet was gone. The Terran ships were taking position around the moon, a wall of protection that would never let harm through. We won, Thara said. We are safe. Marcus smiled. It was a tired smile, but it was real. Good. Thara knelt beside his wheelchair, just as she had knelt before him on the night they met. Why? She asked. Why did you help us? You were dying. You had nothing. Why did you give us everything? Marcus looked at her. His eyes were fading, but there was light in them still. You asked. 3 days later, Marcus Chen died in his sleep. He was surrounded by 600 Krethkai who called him father. He was surrounded by humans who called him hero. He was surrounded by children who had never known hunger because of him. They buried him in the garden, among the tomato plants he loved so much. Grok placed the first flowers on his grave. Thara spoke the words of honor. mixing human phrases with Krethkai traditions, creating something new. The settlement was officially named that day. They called it Chen Sanctuary, after the man who built it with nothing but kindness. 100 years later, Chen Sanctuary was the capital of the Krethkai people, a thriving city on a moon that had once been forgotten. At its center stood a statue of a thin human man with his hands open in welcome. The inscription read, "He had nothing to give but everything that mattered." Every Krethkai child learned his name. Every human visitor was greeted with the same words Marcus spoke on that first night. "You are welcome here. Stay as long as you need." And in the hearts of two species who had once been strangers, a single idea lived on forever. Family is not about blood. Family is about choice. And once you choose someone, you never let them go.